Joining us right now is one of the people instrumental in getting this new great Arizona law out there. Chris Kobach, who is currently a candidate for Secretary of State from the great state of Kansas. Hello, Chris. How are you today?
Fine, thanks. How you doing?
I'm all right. When you hear, you could almost put up with the Joy Behars, the Phil Donahues, the Alan Graysons, the Saturday Night Live junk. But when you hear the President of the United States say what he just said, if you go out to get ice cream, you're going to be harassed. What goes through your mind?
Well, as I was listening to your intro to this segment, I was thinking that Dan Aykroyd sounds more coherent than President Obama.
Ah, very good. I like that. I do like that. Now, this law has been, tell us, in your view, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but how misrepresented has this law, this Arizona law, been in the media and from people like Barack Obama?
Well, it's abundantly clear that people like Barack Obama haven't read the law. As far as some people in the media, I think they're willfully distorting it. Let's make one thing absolutely clear. The law expressly prohibits racial profiling. It says, and I'll reading from Section 2 of the law, that a law enforcement official may not consider race, color, or national origin, end quote, in making any stops or in enforcing the law. And in one other place in the law, it also says the same thing. Just to reiterate the point, you cannot racially profile. If an officer did racially profile in enforcing this law, the conviction would be thrown out. So it's absurd and it's dishonest for people to claim that this law allows racial profiling. Indeed, most laws on the books, 99% of the laws on the books in states, cities, and in the federal statutes, do not in any way expressly prohibit racially profiling. This law goes the extra step and does so.
Well, let me ask you why, and why don't you tell us what the law is then? Because to me, as a layman, non-legal guy, but who admires what you have done and what Arizona has done and what the governor of Arizona has done, I mean, how are you going to, find out if somebody is? When 95, 99% of the illegals in the state of Arizona come from Mexico, would be good police work to stop people who look like they're from Mexico? I mean, tell me what the law then does do.
Well, the law does a couple of things. One is the law makes it a state misdemeanor to break federal law. And this is where President Obama evidently was not familiar with federal law. Someone really should have briefed him before he rushed to the microphone, because federal law since 1940 has required every alien who is legally present in the United States to carry with him certain papers. But according to Barack Obama, suddenly you're going to be harassed if you don't have your papers. Well, it's been a requirement of federal law for 70 years, Mr. President. And the Arizona law just says, hey, if you're breaking this federal statute, and it expressly refers to the federal statute, 8 U.S.C. 1304 and 8 U.S.C. 1306, then you're committing a state misdemeanor. The second thing the law does is it says if an officer is making a traffic stop or some other enforcement of another law, and he develops reasonable suspicion that the person's unlawfully present is an illegal alien, then he's supposed to call the feds and get a confirmation of that. Again, not rocket science. Do we really want officers who are making traffic stops and then there's an obviously illegal alien, a minivan is crammed with 20 people and nobody has any identification whatsoever and they're on an alien smuggling corridor? Do we really want that officer to ignore the situation and just say, on your way, have a good drive? So those are the two main things the law does. It also stops people from going to day labor pickup sites and rushing out into traffic and trying to get jobs. So, it's very common sense, and it's been distorted beyond all belief by the open borders crowd who really don't want any immigration laws to be enforced at all.
Do you believe that Barack Obama is, as you say, as you implied, ignorant of the law, the federal law as it's been, or do you believe that he's demagoguing?
Well, maybe a little bit of both. It seems to me that Obama is trying to stir up racial anxiety for political gain. I think he was ignorant of the fact that federal law has required this. I don't think he actually has a great deal of familiarity with immigration laws. But what he's doing is he's going out there trying to stir up, political sentiments for political gain, looking at these upcoming elections, I think. And, he really ought to be looking at this law and saying, hey, if I'm serious about controlling the border, if he really wants to try to persuade people that amnesty is the right way to go, and that he's really serious about enforcing before amnesty happens. Maybe he ought to actually support Arizona, but of course he's not serious about enforcing the law. We've seen that by the way his his Department of Homeland Security has been run.
We're talking to Chris Kobach. He is one of the authors of the law in Arizona. He's also a candidate for Secretary of State for the state of Kansas. Does this law also crack down on people who would hire illegals and or transport illegals?
It does crack down on people who would transport illegals. There is an express provision there that deals with the smuggling and harboring of illegal aliens. But as far as hiring, it makes a couple of tweaks to Arizona's employment law, which was passed in 2007, and I helped a little bit with that law too, which was recently in 2008 upheld, sustained in the Ninth Circuit, which is a pretty liberal U.S. Court of Appeals. So, it's the same crowd that's claiming Arizona's law is unconstitutional or is somehow preempted by federal law. The same crowd raising the hue and cry today, they were making this noise back in 2007, although not quite as loudly, and Arizona won in court. In fact, the last three of Arizona's major laws on illegal immigration have been challenged in court, and Arizona's won all of them, 3-for-3.
And that's
so I expect them to be 4-for-4 after this challenge.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask you. And of course, 70% of the people of Arizona support this law. A majority of Americans all over the country support this law, and that's what makes the coverage not so bizarre, because I know we have a media that is so far to the left they're falling off the cliff, but it's presented in such a way that any decent person is against this, when in fact the majority of Americans are for it.
Yeah, and I think Americans got a shocking reminder on Friday of why Arizonans are doing this, and that is, you probably heard of the deputy in Pinal County, Louis Pearl, who was shot with an AK-47 by an illegal alien drug smuggling gang. They shot at him approximately 30 rounds, and then he had to be airlifted out of the desert, and they were shooting at the helicopter as the helicopter was taking out. This is in America. That sounds like a scene from Iraq, but that's the kind of crime situation that Arizona is dealing with.
You're absolutely right. Tell us about your run for the Secretary of State position in Kansas, and how we could help a great man like you get elected.
Well, thanks for asking. One of the things I'd like to see happen in Kansas, and I think it should happen in every state, is we should follow Arizona's example with respect to proof of registration when you vote. Arizona is the only state in the union right now that requires you to actually prove you're a U.S. citizen when you register to vote. And we do know that there have been thousands of illegal aliens in some states who've been illegally registered to vote, including legal aliens. You can only vote if you're a U.S. citizen. And I'd like to see Kansas follow that example, and I sure would think it would be a great thing if New York and New Jersey followed that example too. And if folks want to check out some of the articles I've written or follow any of this, they can go to chriskobach.com. It's KRISKOBACH.com.
All right, we're going to link it at the WR Radio Net website at chriskobach.com, and people could contribute to your campaign there as well, I would assume.
Yeah, they certainly can, and that would be much appreciated.
All right, Chris, we'll talk to you again. Stay strong. Congratulations, and God bless you for what you do.
God bless you, too. Thanks.
Thank you. Chris Kobach, ladies and gentlemen.